Yeah, Perfect Plex Radio. We about to go live on them. Hey, Mr. Main Event, B-Dub, Mike Knoxxx. That's with 3 X's cause he's hardcore. Are y'all ready? I go by the name Fred Knoxxx. We about to give y'all something special. You ready? Let's go! At the money, now you're wrong, what you getting in? Perfect Plex Radio, got him listening. Mr. Main Event, B-Dub and Mike Knoxxx got this.
Friend, this is how we do it here on Perfect Plex Talk Radio, part of the best damn show on radio networks. Stand on your feet for Scotty Riggs! Woo! What's going on, Scotty?
Oh, it's a good Monday night, my friend. How you guys doing?
Listen,
good, Scotty. It's an honor and pleasure to have you on the show.
Dude, it's a pleasure to be here. Like I told you last week when we first chatted, and you were actually going to make me watch Raw tonight. It's actually one of the first Raws I watched and got to witness probably one of the best wrestling matches between CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, Daniel Bryan and the return of the Taker. So, dude, you made my night by making me do that just to be a little bit more updated for you cats. So I want to say thank you because you made my night pleasurable.
All right, well, we thank you as always for joining here the program. And Scotty, I just want to go ahead and ask away. So when was the last time you watched wrestling before the night?
To be honest, every now and then I'll especially when we start football season, I'll be honest with you. I'm always watching my night football, college ball, and everything. But I will flip on every now and then in commercials to see what's going on. And as a fan, unfortunately, I've been educated to kind of, you catch 1 minute of what's going on, you kind of have a feeling for what's going on with the whole deal. And that kind of takes away some of the surprise for me. It's like with the Kiss My Ass thing tonight. As soon as I saw Triple H talk about anything, I went, I have a feeling what this might lead up to, but didn't know it would lead up to The Undertaker. And I still think the best word we used tonight on Raw was the word freak when Triple H called out and said, "You're a freak."
Right.
That tripped my mind out. But usually I'll try to catch TNA. RBD is a great friend of mine. Been since like 92, 93 we first met and started wrestling on independence together with a promoter named Greg Price. All across Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, Florida, Tennessee, you named it. And we wrestled each other a lot in good guy versus good guy matches. And we also wrestled as a tag team a lot. And so me and Rob have kept together for, almost 20 years now. And he will either send me a text or call me and say, "Man, I got a great match coming up." Like when he kicked the business teeth out on the show, he called me up and said, "Dude, man, I know I've heard you before, and you got to see this kick I hit a miss with." And dude kept his teeth out, didn't even put them back in. So I'll get a call from Rob and say, he'll tell me to catch the show, to catch a match of his and see what's going on. And so that's normally how I try to keep up with things nowadays.
Okay. Mr. Riggs, this is Mr. Main Event Brian Waters here. My biggest question, one of my first questions.
Mr. Main Event, I dig that name. Someone's like Mr. Wonderful.
Thank you. How was it when you were in the flock? Were you guys outside, off the television? Did you guys really bond together as a unit? On TV, you guys had the image that you guys were like lost and Raven was your savior. How was it behind the scenes working with those guys?
We actually bonded very, very well together. I still remember the first time I met Perry Saturn. I thought he wanted to kill me. We were in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he'd come in. We were at the Marriott hotel there, and he was in the room with Raven. I walked in, and Perry didn't say a word to me. And I was thinking, this is kind of scary because, I just didn't even know the guy. And then all of a sudden, once you break that first show with him, we became instant friends. Kidman was already a good friend with Billy. Lodi, he was an easy guy to get to know. Sick boy. Me and him became great friends. We played golf together numerous times. It was ridiculous. He actually lives pretty close to me in Hilton Head.
Now, how's your golf game?
So, before I fractured my left elbow, I actually was pretty good. Me, Lex, Marcus, and Stinger used to always travel together and bring our clubs, especially when we did our Orlando TV tapings. We would play golf at least 3-4 times a week when we were down there. And when I've been very, very blessed to play with Larry Zbyszko, Pat Patterson. If you remember the old WWF era,
yeah.
Pat Patterson, him and me, Lex, and Pat's husband Louie passed away. Played golf, and we actually had this is how well I was playing that day. We actually had tied them up on the golf course. And so we went to the putting green. She was going to, have to buy drinks afterwards. And Pat Patterson, of all people, walks up behind me, just met the man, pantses me in front of everybody because I was wearing those, like, Zuba black pants, pantses me in front of everybody on the golf course. I'm sitting there with my underwear just hanging there and just going, great. But I did make my putt, and they didn't have to buy drinks.
Now,
that's how good my golf game used to be.
Well, let me ask you this one. Because I'm just dying to know. We've had your former tag team partner on the show, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, and he told us a story about how he got his shirt from the NWO. When all that came about, how did you feel about that situation? Because from what he said to us on this show, this is nothing I'm making up. I heard it from his words exactly. When that whole transition was going down, he went to Sting and said, "Hey, where's my shirt? I feel like I'm being left out." What did that place you, and how was you feeling when that transpired?
Well, I mean, in one point, me and Marcus had great chemistry as a tag team. I mean, it was very weird. It's like when with Raven and the Flock there, I met Raven in '94, I think it was, an independent show when he was doing Scotty Flamingo, and we had just chit-chatted at a bunch of shows and kind of became friends. So when me and Raven became friends as part of the Flock, it was very easy chemistry. Me and Marcus had very, very great chemistry in the ring. We didn't have to say a word to each other, and we already knew what we wanted to do when I tagged him in, or if, for a double team move or something like that. We'd have to look at each other and know what was coming up without saying a word. When we wrestled against each other, it was the same way. So for me to look at Marcus with his chance to go to the NWO, I thought it was a really good thing for him because he had been a good guy for so long, a babyface as you would call it, that if he could really be a heel, it would shoot his career through the roof. And it did to a point, but unfortunately, as much as I love my brother Marcus, Buff is a jerk. Marcus is like a brother to me, but when he's Buff, he's a jerk. We actually left him at a building one night because he was walking around being buffed to everybody, and Lex, Sting, and myself just were like, this is ridiculous. We can't even put up with this anymore because he's driving us nuts. When we talked to him, we said, dude, be Marcus. Be Buff when you're on camera, but be Marcus when you're on us. And, part of that helped him, and I thought he would have got a great, much bigger push as Buff. But unfortunately, he went straight into a tag team with Scott Norton as Vicious and Delicious. I was like, man, that just he lost his whole persona that he could have had as a singles wrestler because he's been tag team forever. Yeah. So I wanted to see him succeed because I thought it would, it would also help, because I knew we would end up having a feud, even though I found out we were actually having our first match from his girlfriend at the gym. She walks up to me and she goes, you got Marcus that sold out in Cedar Rapids. I was like, do what? And it was like, no way. I was like, I didn't even know about it. And Marcus had just found out about it, told her, and I had to have to bump into her on her way out, and she told me about it. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And I don't know if Marcus told you this, his blockbuster finish, I actually created that for him and gave it to him that night to use for his finish and for the night at that pay-per-view. And so he took that into a good thing. So I wanted to see him succeed, and I think he did to a point.
Mr. Riggs, let me ask you this. What was the locker room like when Bret Hart arrived? Bret being one of my favorites of all time. What was it like when he arrived?
Bret actually, to my own surprise, because he was such a huge legend even in my eyes when he first came in, I was in catering, and out of nowhere, Bret comes walking over, comes at me and goes, "Scotty, can I sit down with you and eat lunch?" I was like, yeah. It blew my mind. First, he knew my name, but it blew my mind that he sat down. And this is where Bret was. Bret took the chance with every person that was almost on the roster to sit down and spend time with them, to say hello, to get to know. That's how much professional and how much, excellence of execution, I guess you could say, that he had in his persona, that he wanted to get to know everybody. He was telling me, he goes, "Dude, I watched you for a while." He goes, "You got one of the best drop kicks I've ever seen." He goes, you can either get up to a 6'8" guy and hit him in the face, or you can take a 5'10" guy right in the mud. He goes, "Don't matter. You can get up there and hit him." And I said, "Dude, thanks. I appreciate it." And I was actually dumbfounded that he knew more about me than I even would figure. And so that's how much I respected him, that he studied the game to a point that it was really, really good. And Bret actually probably could have played a much bigger political card if he wanted to, but he didn't even do that, and that's why you probably, you saw him get the little run here, little run there. They were really used right. In his time in WCW, Eric Bischoff just, thought he'd grab a big name from Vince, offered him a ton of money, did, and then just went, "Okay, we got him. Now I can use him any way I want to." Bischoff was a big flub in that way.
Now, Scott, being that you've been around a while, you made your debut, from what I've read anyway, in '92. Okay.
February 6th of '92 is my first match in a small town of Bowden, Georgia, in front of about maybe 100 people.
Yeah.
I did a run-in on the match and hit a guy with a shoe, caused him to lose. And the very next week, which was February 6th, I wrestled that same guy.
Now, so why do you think? Why haven't you made the transition to maybe TNA or had a stint inside the WWE?
Well, basically, I went to ECW after WCW closed.
Right.
ECW closed. They did a huge run on the talent and everything else that WWF guys wanted, and they were offering them very, very low money and, with very, very little promise. And I'd even I'd spoken to Van Dam about things, and he was like, "Dude," he goes, "this is not where you want to be." He goes, "I hate it here. The thing for me is I've got lucky, I got a good contract, good this, good that."
And that was where it, and what federation was
and that was one of the things that to me, and even I had discussions with Jim Ross, and Jim Ross was like, "You're an excellent wrestler, but you just don't have the persona or the character that we want to have here in WWE." And I respected him for saying that. He told me, "You're a great wrestler." But the thing is, you look at it now, a lot of their characters are just not getting over, even though they're trying to push characters to the limit. But their guys, they have tonight, just watching this, Dolph Ziggler could be one of the biggest heels in the business. And they're not using him right. They're trying to make him this character of this whiny guy. But he could be such a great heel. See, nobody wants to be a heel anymore. Everybody wants to be a superstar or celebrity, whatever that, may call for it. Everybody's a nice guy. If they had one person, kind of like when CM Punk did his thing where it seemed like, he was dropping his pipe bombs and he was being real. He was calling for his friends. He was doing stuff that nobody expected him to do. The crowd went, like, "God, this is realist. This is realism." If they had one guy, not a monster, almost a Tully Blanchard type guy, a guy who would almost run, would fight you but run at the end, and people want him to get beat up. And he would not come walking out wearing his own T-shirt that he's selling. He would not come walking out, in glitz and glam or doing anything. He would come out and just go, "I don't like you people. I don't care about you people. Boo me, cheer me. I don't care. I'm just going to start hurting people." And I think that guy will put asses every 18 inches is what Jim Ross used to always say. That's what sells, tickets. That's what makes this business, is putting a butt in every seat. And so I think in that point, I actually went to work for Dusty Rhodes in TCW in his promotion. He was trying to push it, and he was paying me fairly well to be with him. And not great money, but good enough money. We were working, and I got to work a 8-month program with Barry Windham. And Barry taught me more in 2002 in that 8-month program than I had learned from 92 until that time. I was like, it was one of the biggest blessings I ever had. Okay. And then I got to work a 3-month program with Dusty's son, Dustin. It was all for the heavyweight title of Jesse's organization. And so for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, I got to work in a nice small promotion where I had a nice, decent little paycheck, and I was working with these top guys, Tommy Dreamer, Steve Carino, these guys that Dusty's bringing in. I got to work with these young guys. I got to, Barry Windham taught me how to be a champion. If I would have had somebody do that a little bit earlier in my career, instead of just being a part of something, if I would have had somebody, Diamond Dallas Page helped me to a point in developing myself and learning the business. But Page also, as much as I love the man, he developed me to a point and then stopped me at that point so he could elevate himself, in what he was trying to do. And so, you either take somebody in your wing and you make them, like Barry did with me. Barry, he had trimmed down and loved working with me. He's like, dude, and Dusty and Barry told me, he goes, you're like working with Tully Blanchard. Your timing is perfect. You're a great heel. You don't sign autographs. You have people running up to you. You'll look at them. You'll just act smug, and you'll walk off. And he goes, that's what's making people actually buy tickets to see you get your butt kicked. That's what a great heel is.
Just a little side note, Barry Windham's one of my top 5 of all time. That's just me. And I ever since I was a child, I just loved Barry Windham. I don't know, maybe because I'm black and he's white with the locks, and I'm black without locks. I don't know. Go figure.
I got you.
But Scotty, look, the lines are on fire. Everybody's calling in from Flock U to talk to you. So I'm going to go down the line. They got some questions to ask you. The real Dwayne Allen, you're on with Scotty Riggs.
Scotty Riggs, how you doing, sir?
Doing very good, my friend. How are you doing?
All right. Feeling good. God is good. Quick question. How did you feel once the Flock gimmick disbanded while you were in WCW? Like, did you have any doubts or questions of where your career is going to go after this run was over with Raven and Raven's Flock?
Well, yeah, it kind of sucked that it did end, and it ended basically because of political reasons. The NWO wanted to be the cool heels. And the Flock, we were actually the real heels. We didn't want people to cheer us. We were a clique, kind of like the NWO. But when you got Hogan, Nash, Hall going, hey, these guys are stealing our thunder. They're sitting in the crowd. They're acting like, bad guys. We're the bad guys. They're stealing our thunder. We want to see this thing broken up. And that's basically the reason we broke up, was political reasons. Instead of us used to beat up Chris Benoit and leave him laying, and all the guys that we started having angles with, we would leave him laying. It turned around all of a sudden that one guy would leave 6 guys beat to death and walk away, and all of us would sit back and go, what happened? And so basically that's how that happened. And I actually wanted to carry over that persona with the eye patch and do a Snake Plissken type thing, which is what that was character was actually based off of. I wanted to keep doing that, and Terry Taylor, who I never go along with, unfortunately, for personal reasons I can only imagine, but never really got along with the guy who was a booker, said, no, we're not going to do that with you. Kevin Nash has come up with an idea to do the mirror thing. And so that's when they put me on that with the mirror. That was not even my decision to do. That was somebody else's decision. Got me a pay-per-view match and everything else, and then just kind of went kaput from there. So,
now, I want to just ask you real fast before we take some more calls. I know my Mr. Main Event has another question actually before we fill some more calls. Now, your character, which you've kept the names, Scotty Riggs, originated from Lethal Weapon, the Mel Gibson character. What made you actually decide to go ahead and keep that gimmick, if you will, so to speak, alive?
Well, I mean, that was what everybody knows me as. That was that. Actually, I still remember when I first started wrestling, a promoter gave me, because I was a young, straight out of college football player, good-looking kid, good body, everything else. He goes, you're just a stud. He goes, we're going to call you Scott Stud. I said, okay, cool. So that's what I went by at first. And when they brought me in, I was in Memphis in 1995, wrestling for Jerry Lawler in the USWA. I was there for 8 months. They brought me in to be Marcus's tag team partner. And they were like, you ought to be Bagwell and a Stud. That's great. I'm like, that just sounds hokey because it's a real name, and a character name. I said, I don't want that. I said, and my favorite actor at the time was Mel Gibson. My favorite movie is A Lethal Weapon. So I said, Bagwell and Riggs. Riggs and Bagwell. Scotty Riggs. Marcus Bagwell. Riggs, Bagwell. That just sounds strong. The American males, Bagwell and Riggs. And then when I became part of the flock, it was just Riggs. Most of the guys, except for Tony Schiavone, used to always call me Scotty Riggs because he always wanted to seem like he knew more than anybody else. So one thing I hated about him. But, Riggs just had that strong one word, one syllable type name that you could, it's like Sting, Luger, Riggs, Steiner, Hogan. It all had that oomph. You didn't have to think, hey, say this about Brodus Clay, but Funkadelic Funkmaster or whatever. You don't have to think of a sentence to think of who somebody is. Bret, with Hitman Hart, that was a couple things, but as soon as you said Hitman, you knew exactly who it was. As soon as you say a name, you know who it was, and that's why I stick with that.
Now, Mr. Riggs, we just came off of the Royal Rumble last night, and one of my favorite matches that you guys had in WCW was the World War III, the 60-man Battle Royal. How did you mentally prepare for that? I mean, you're talking 3 rings, 60 men. How do you prepare for that?
To be honest with you, the first one I remember the most because me and Marcus had to do a autograph session, and it took like 3 hours to get the line. It was huge, and we didn't get to eat dinner, and so I was actually sitting there shaking because I had not gotten the chance to eat. I maybe had like 1 chicken breast or something, but I gotten in the ring and didn't really know. Here I am with all these guys and trying to figure out what to do and who to grab and who to kind of start things off with. And all of a sudden, the first person to grab me was Ric Flair. Gives me a couple of shots, sticks me in the corner, and he goes, "This is for Sting," and chops the fire out of me. Then he grabs me and gives me that little face punch. I'm like, okay. And then next, and he lines me up and goes, "This is for Luger," and gives me a big old chop again. Gives me a little face punch. I was like, whoa, first he's lighting me up from the chops, and so right now I'm totally discombobulated, hungry, irritable, getting chopped, Ric Flair, calling the boys' names out. It's a rib on me by those guys. And he goes, "This is for Bagwell." He goes, "Bagwell don't deserve one. 1-2 me." So I started punching back on him. I see boom, boom, and falling back all the way across the corner, and then somebody else coming off. So to basically prepare for something like that, you don't really know what somebody else is going to do to you until you actually get in there. And then, so it was kind of one of those deals. And then with the next one, me and Marcus were splitting up. And so our whole concept in that thing was, we were going to end up putting each other out. So you had to set that up. So not really being involved in towards the finish of it, having our own little storylines that we were telling, or somebody pulling basically a rib on you during the match.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to prepare for something like that. Unless you're going to be one of the final guys, 20 guys or whatever it was in that last ring, you really don't have to sit back in depth to prepare yourself. Be honest.
Okay. Well, we got like I said, we got the calls are on fire. Avoid the clap, Jimmy Duke. And if you guys want to talk just talk to Scotty Riggs. Time is limited. Space is limited. The barbershop is packed. 347-637-3859. Get your Perfect Plex in while you can. Hitman Lopez,
there you go.
You're on with Flock U Nation. Scotty Riggs, what's your question?
Hey, Scotty, how you doing?
Very good. Speak to me.
Hey. One of my favorite matches with you and Marcus Bagwell was from Nitro back in 1995, and it was for the WCW World Tag Team titles against Harlem Heat. Now, what was it like to work with those guys?
To work with Harlem Heat?
Yeah.
They were actually great to work with. Booker and Stevie were, they had been in the company a short time, and so they were still feeling their roots. They were, being the tag champs, and working with them, me and Marcus and those guys had just really good chemistry. I still remember taking that spin wheel kick from Booker. His brother, Stevie, shot me off, and Booker did that kick, boom, caught me in the mug, shot my feet out. Everybody in the world thought it took my head off. You could watch on tape how Sherry reacted, how Nick Patrick reacted, Marcus reacted. Everyone in the world was like, oh, my God. And even Booker was like screaming, that's great. And he's jumping up and down in the ring. And I'm, and it looked like it killed me. But it was like a feather, to be honest with you. So, I mean, that was the nature that we have with those guys, is that we could suspend that disbelief and have everyone in the world thinking we were killing each other. And in one sense, we were landing some good solid shots, but we weren't going out to hurt each other, and we made each other look good. And to win those titles that night, I still remember everyone in the world was trying to pull ribs on me that everything has changed, everything else, because here I was a rookie. Only been there a couple of weeks, basically, before they put the title belts on me and Marcus. And so it was just one of those things, everyone, this has changed, that's changed. But, hey, it was part of the thing. I just kind of took it with the role. I was happy to be there.
And
next thing I know, we're Tamps, and the crowd went ballistic. We were in Johnson City, Tennessee, and I still remember there might be, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 people there, but they went nuts.
That's a good question. That guy right there, Scotty, he's a WCW NWA fanatic. I mean, you watch.
I mean, when he brought up the question from that long ago, I had a feeling, and he knew the match and everything. I had a feeling that guy was he's a game. He's a fan.
Yeah,
he's a wrestling fan.
Not a mark, exactly. We got another call coming in from Shark. Shark, you're on with Scotty Riggs, Flock U Nation. Go ahead and ask your question.
Shark.
Scotty, how are you, man? Great to be talking with you. Been a fan of yours since the WCW days.
I'm digging the Shark nickname, my friend.
Oh, thank you. I got to ask you. Had to ask you an ECW question. You started out when you first were appearing on ECW as by RVD's side and eventually turned on him. What was it like you two setting up the match that eventually you two had? What was it like working a program with them?
Oh, it's great. I mean, like I said, me and RVD have been friends since late 92, early 93, so we've known each other for a long, long time. And he was actually very instrumental in bringing me in. Tommy Dreamer wanted me to do a Rick Rude type characters for the Dangerous Alliance. And Rob Van Dam was like, no way, dude, this guy's going to, this is what I want to do with Scott. I want to bring him in here and get him established as my friend because, he was one of the top over guys. And if we can do this right, he hasn't lost a match in almost 2 years. And Rob was like, dude, I want Scott to turn on me and cause me to lose my first match. That will get heat for him, and that will get him established. And that's how much of a friend Rob was to me then. And so to work with him was great, except for the fact that he's broken my nose twice. He's broken ribs. He's... this is how much I trusted him. I let him do anything in the world to me, and unfortunately, a lot of times it ended up being an injury. And I busted him up a few times too. But we had a match in Hammerstein Ballroom where he dropped me in the guardrail in the first 2 minutes of the match, cracked 2 ribs and bruised another. But we still went another 15 minutes because we were main event on the second night, and just. The next thing you know, I'm in an ambulance after the match, going to the hospital in New York City, of all places, and about maybe 45 minutes after I'm in the emergency room, they're checking me out for x-rays. I come back from x-rays, and in my room is Rob, his wife Sonia, and Justin McCauley, who's a UFC fighter, who's a friend of theirs that came in. And the three of them were in the room, and they lived in California at the time too, so they sat there for a good 2-3 hours because I had to do a CAT scan and everything else, check my spleen because it was on that side. But they sat there, and I actually had to make them leave to go home so they didn't miss their flight. Because then Rob didn't want to leave me. But I was like, dude, you've already done this. You brought me my stuff. You did more than I expected you to. But that was how our friendship was. We trusted each other in the ring so much that we took so many risks to get each other's stuff over. So it was tremendous to work with Rob Van Dam.
Now, we have Maurice calling in from WCC Nation. Maurice, you're on with Scotty Riggs. Flock you and ask your question.
Yeah, what's going on, Scotty?
Going
on, Scotty? Love to have a picture of Scott Studdard, my man. All right, got to ask you. Now, I had to think about this very carefully because weren't you the very first person to take the Van Terminator from Rob?
Actually, on pay-per-view, yes. He'd actually, almost roadkill, I think. He had tried it in a match with him. Didn't like the way he did it. But we actually did it in Wichita, Kansas, one of the first times we'd ever been out there. Me and Rob were actually wrestling each other. Rob was like, dude, you mind me trying this? I was like, dude, heck no, I'm not at all. Next thing you know, I got a broken nose. Lights go out for a second, big black flashlight, boom. Open my eyes, I see number red because my face is bleeding. Steve Carino, Jack Victory, and somebody else, can't remember who it was. Maybe the jury came down to interfere in the match because they were watching my back, saw what happened. I crawled out, blood just pouring from my nose. But on the pay-per-view, I knew to protect my face, so I put my arm up in front of my face and said, hey, if anything gets broken, it's going to be my arm. It won't be my nose again. But on pay-per-view, yeah, taking that was the first time that it was actually had a name and a move that he had designed to do. And the worst way I ever saw it stolen was to see Shane McMahon do that to his dad with a trash can, I think it was, on some pay-per-view or something they did. And then they would not allow Rob to use it because Shane used it. And Rob made it. He developed the move. And they would not let him use it in WWE. And so that was where I sat back and went, man, that's how politically wrong they are at times. We got to create something. You steal it from them, and because you're the boss's son, you can't use it anymore. You created it. But, the Van Terminator was definitely a killer move. I took it a couple of times, and the first time it did break my nose. And so learn from that part up how to protect myself a little better.
Okay, now we have another call coming in. This is Spot Face. See, right here on Perfect Plex Talk Radio, Scotty, we got nicknames. So this is Spot Face's own. He's calling in to check out. I got a question for you.
Oh, boy.
Spot, you're on with Scotty Riggs.
What's
Mr.
up?
Riggs, how you doing?
Doing
Two
good,
questions.
Man.
One, when you originally was pitched with the flock angle, what was the booker's direction for you guys?
Basically, it was Raven. His whole idea was to get me to be a part of the flock, but he goes, I don't want. He was almost like wanting to make me a Tommy Dreamer persona, the babyface before I joined. A guy that battled him until he basically beat me to join the flock. Actually, in the sense, I was fighting my way into the flock, and I was the only one to do that. Everybody else just kind of joined, Kidman showed up when Stevie Richards left after I actually had a match with him in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and beat him up a little bit, and he left the very next day. Quit WCW, went somewhere else. But, Stevie was always there. He had one match with Raven, and next thing you know, he was part of it. Kidman took his spot. Perry kind of was there. Hammer just came in. Sick Boy, Lodi, all those guys were there. I was actually the only guy to fight my way into it. So that was kind of a cool way to be remembered part of that. So what's your other question?
Okay, my other question is, how do you feel, being that you are, I want to say, a tag team specialist, how do you feel with the current state of tag team wrestling that's televised?
There is no tag team wrestling anymore. To be honest with you, TNA does, they kind of have some tag teams, but there is no tag team wrestling anymore. I mean, the last greatest team that you'll probably ever remember would be the Road Warriors. Animal and Hawk. I mean, Animal's a great guy. I love him to death. Hawk I was one of the few guys that get to call him Mikey. And he always called me Scooter, so I had a great relationship with him. But my respect for those guys, they were a tag team that never split up and fought each other. They split up, but they never, because of Animal's back issue and stuff like that. But when you come down to it, they were the last really true tag team that stayed together. Everybody else was just a combination of people put together. You had the Steiner brothers, you had Gordy and Williams, you had, just guys of that sort that were put together. You had, now they'll put Swagger and Ziggler together, and Ziggler's a great heel by himself. He doesn't need to be put with Swagger. Or you got, James Storm and Bobby Roode made a great tag team as Beer Money. You know what I'm saying? They were one of the last good tag teams. but now they're split up and fighting each other. So for a tag team to stay together and be together forever, in a sense, that's what means tag team wrestling. Nowadays, Vince thinks it's a waste of time, so he doesn't do it. He puts everybody together. He'll do that gimmick where, what do you do? Cena's facing The Rock at, somebody else, and somebody's facing somebody, so he'll put Cena and The Rock together as a tag team, and it's coming. He's done it so often now. And then he'll put the other two guys that are facing each other as a tag team, and they got to work together for the night. And this is, and you always hear Michael Cole, this is a historic presidential thing, kind of like Cerrone used to do. The greatest nitro ever, It can't have the greatest nitro ever every week, or the greatest, I can't believe they got the Cena and The Rock tag team together. It's just unprecedented. Dude, they do it every time. So, wrestling pretty much, tag team wrestling pretty much died off, in the 90s, late 90s when Vince took things over and he really split things up. And, he just decided that tag team wrestling was boring. And there's actually a huge science to it that you can actually draw a crowd into it. If you can develop a team that they can actually back, dude, it's huge. I mean, that's why wrestling used to be your semi-main event was the tag team championship, back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. Then your main event was the world championship or the U.S. championship or whatever. But that semi-main was always the tag match because that had its own chemistry, its own story, its own way of putting you on the edge of your seat. But now, today, it doesn't exist.
Well, Mr. Riggs, I want to know one thing. Every wrestler, they say the wrestlers sometimes can be the biggest marks themselves. And, we've had Shad Gaspard on here, and he's indicated the time when he walked in the locker room and he really marked out when he saw The Rock. Do you have a personal mark-out moment that you can remember when you first walked into, whether it was the WCW locker room or ECW locker room?
Wow. Probably... God, you kind of caught me a little off guard with that one. Probably the first time I met Stinger.
Okay.
I became such great friends with him. Long story short, it was 93, and I had just moved from where I went to school at West Georgia. I just moved to Marietta, and we didn't have a place to live yet. I had me and my dog, and we were actually living in my Blazer, in my truck. And I had parked right in a parking deck, in the bottom part of the deck that stayed dark, right next to where Luger and Sting's Main Event Fitness was in Marietta, right up to 120 Loop. And had actually, stayed there a couple nights until I met a few people at the gym and found a place to stay. But I told Stinger that story, and Stinger was like, dude, why didn't you ask me, Shaq? He goes, I would have done whatever I could for you. I said, we didn't even know each other then. I said, I appreciate the thing, but now you definitely become a good friend. But yeah, the first time that I actually got to travel with him and Lex and Marcus, because me and Marcus were a tag team, and Marcus was great friends with Stinger. They had been traveling together already. Lex had just come in for the first Nitro ever in Minneapolis. And him and Stinger were such good buddies, and here I was, the rookie, traveling with Lex, Sting, Marcus, and I'm driving the car, and I got Stinger sitting next to me and Lex in the back telling me, kid, you need to speed up or you need to do this, and then he just rivered me trying to poke me, poke me, see if I had thick skin to take it. And Marcus is just being Marcus. He was just being the fun, goofy guy that he always was. And Stinger's like trying to stand up for me, going, "Oh, come on, Lex, Scott's great. Scott's driving perfectly. No, he's not. He sucks. He's right, And so basically, I pretty much marked out the first time Stinger was I actually got to drive and travel with Stinger. So that would be my mark out moment there. The first time I met The Rock was the first time I did the thing in Phillips Arena. He was getting his tattoo done. And I had a couple tats. I just walked up to him, or not really walked up to him, but, was standing next to the ring, and I walked over and introduced myself, and he went, yeah, Scotty, I know you, and he even said, Because you got a great drop kick. I've seen you before. We miss each other. He goes, we miss each other in Memphis. He goes, he was Flex Kavanaugh wrestling in Memphis, and which was in, I think, 94. And he had gone to Rocky Maivia in the WWF, and maybe 3 months later or so, I went into the USWA and started wrestling there. And that's where he was before he went to WWF. So we had just kind of missed each other over that time period. So it was kind of one of those deals where when you meet the guys, you kind of mark out for just a second, but then you realize we're all part of the same team. We're the boys. You know, we're this, we're that.
Right.
This guy might have a little more celebrity status. It's like I said before, Bret Hart walked up to me and said, hey, can I sit down and eat lunch with you? I was kind of like, yeah.
Like, that's Bret Hart. You're not going to say no to Bret Hart.
Well, no, I mean, you don't want to say no, but even if I had one bite left, I would have made that one bite last an hour. Just
like
to
an
sit there and
hour.
talk to the guy.
Like an hour.
I would have been cutting that little last bite of chicken in or whatever, and those last 6 peas, I would have ate those last 6 peas one at a time just to sit there and chat with the guy.
Now,
so,
if you could work with anybody today, whether it be CM Punk, whether it be John Cena, whether it be someone from TNA, so many I just can't think of them. Me personally, Scotty, I love wrestling. I just hate the product of TNA. Your former tag team partner said he thinks that TNA's product is better than WWE's product. So it's a two-way question. Which one do you think has the better product? And if you could work with anybody today, who would that be?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm a wrestling fan, and I've gotten on so many, especially my Facebook account, I've gotten on so many conversations and never having to block people because they get so just belligerent with you.
Right.
I'm a wrestling fan, not a sports entertainment fan. I put a thing up on my Facebook today that said, pro wrestlers used to have to deal with pain.
Mm-hmm.
Sports entertainers have to deal with makeup.
Oh, I like that.
So, but then I had this guy poke fun of me basically saying, Scotty Riggs is just jealous, because he never made it to the big time, the big show in WWF or WWE. He can't be, he can't have the notoriety of John Cena. He can't even tie the boots of John Cena and all this stuff. So I deal with that all the time. But the thing is, people don't understand me. They don't know me personally. I didn't get into pro wrestling to be a star, to be a celebrity, to be anything. I got into it because my dad started watching me when I was 8 years old, and I liked wrestling. I wanted to be a wrestler. I didn't want to be a superstar. I didn't want to be whatever, a sports entertainer. Terry Funk said, if you want to be a sports entertainer, go into Hollywood. You get your SAG card. You get benefits. You get stuff like that. You get insurance. You get dental. You don't have any of that stuff with Vince. Vince will, as soon as he's done with you, he'll put you out in the pasture. He'll get rid of you. He goes, don't ever go there. If you want to be a wrestler, WCW, Independence, Ring of Honor, and TNA, I actually think TNA's product is better now than, WWF or WB, excuse me. They had a great show tonight. Of course, first time I watched it because of you cats, but they had a great show tonight. And I've always heard after a pay-per-view, their next night, their next Raw will always be good because they're creative and everybody else has a fire underneath them, and they will put a great product out that next night, and then it kind of dwindles down. Even though it's supposed to be building it up, they dwindle down there. And they're so character-driven up there. That Brodus Clay guy doing, basically he's doing Disco Inferno with Too Cold Scorpio put together, with the disco ball and all, and that Grandmaster Flash.
I thought Ernest the Cat with Too Cold Scorpio.
But that's the thing.
Miller.
Sports entertainment, I can't get into the WWE. I can't get into their product because they got some of the best talent there, bar none. But they're not using them because they all want to be characters. They all want to be all superstars or celebrities. They all want to wear their all T-shirts. And the guys will go out and put on great matches, but I find out basically, and I know from first-hand experience, they basically will tell you, okay, this is how your whole match is going to go. They'll have an Arn Anderson or a Dustin Rhodes. They don't even call them road agents anymore. They call them producers. They will have their producers lay them out every move, every move to do during the match, and tell them where to be, how to work the camera, and everything else. It's a TV show. They are a complete TV show. Very few guys have their own.
Now, Scotty, that one little thing you said there,
expression.
That one little thing that you said, I have to kind of question about the producer over the road agent, because I speak to a couple of the guys that you call producers that they call themselves road agents, like BJ, Billy Gunn. I mean, not Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, those guys. So is it that those guys still call themselves road agents and the company called them producers? Or
well, the thing was that they used to be called road agents just because they were wrestlers.
Right.
They put the matches together, give you finishes and stuff like that, and actually tell you how much time to do and what you were allowed to do and what you couldn't do because of where you were in the card or whatever. And they used to call them road agents. Vince changed that to producers because he goes, we're not a wrestling company. We're a television show. I don't have agents. I have producers. So he just basically changed the lingo on it. It's basically the same position. It's just a different terminology. TNA, I actually think their product is better because, not that I get along with Jeff Jarrett at all, I really don't, but I know how he focuses on wrestling. Kurt Angle is a guy that I wish I could have a match with just because he knows wrestling. Kurt basically came from a wrestling background, and he knows how to mix in the amateur style. I remember I put up an old match of Ole Anderson on my Facebook thing and said he was UFC before there was UFC. If you watched his match, Ole Anderson back in his, I think it was an 80s match, was basically taking the guy down with amateur moves. And even though it was just a guy, an enhancement guy, a jobber guy, he was beating up. He was throwing him around like a rag doll with amateur wrestling moves, and then he started beating him up by beating on his arm and stuff like that. So that's the thing with Kurt Angle. That's why I would love to work with him. Is Kurt knows how to wrestle. He knows how to bring that out of you, and that's why I would like to be that's why I got into the wrestling business, was to be a wrestler, and that was it. I didn't want to be this huge star. I wanted to be a wrestler. I didn't worry about being Hulk Hogan or the next whatever you want to call it. The next big thing. I didn't want to be that. I just wanted to be a wrestler, whether I was open a match, mid card, tag team, didn't matter. I just want to be part of the show because that's what I wanted to do. It's like my job passion. Some people want to be a cartoonist. Some people want to be a radio host. That's what you seek after. That's what you do. And that's what I want to do. I want to be a wrestler. I didn't want to be a celebrity. That's why it was so much fun being a bad guy for Dusty Rhodes when I didn't have to sign. I asked Dusty, you want me to sign autographs? He goes, what do you think? I'm like, you're number one bad guy. No, I don't think I should. He goes, well, if you don't think you should, you shouldn't. He goes, because that's what's selling tickets for us. Because if you go out there, act mean and do all this bad stuff and then walk out and sign autographs for everybody and take pictures and kiss babies, people are going to go, oh, he's really such a nice guy. And actually, no, they're not going to boo you anymore. They're not going to buy a ticket so you get your butt kicked. So that's what I sought after. Now you got these guys who go out and, I hate to say it in a sense, but The Miz. Who's afraid of The Miz? I don't think The Miz could beat himself out of a paper bag, but he always has this scowl on his face like he hates everybody, and people go, man, that's actually kind of cute. I look at it and go, there's just no intimidation factor to that. And that's what, to be a heel, you got to have that intimidating factor that people will be scared of you. Sid Finley was one of the toughest dudes I ever met in my life, and he always told me stories about guys used to say to him, wrestling's fake and all this stuff, and they go, oh, really? And he goes, give me your thumb. And he would actually break guys' thumbs. He'd actually put a little pressure, and the guy would wince a little bit, and he'd go, don't hurt, and all of a sudden his friends would be laughing because the guy's wincing, and then he'd go snap and break the guy's thumb and go, how's that feel? And the guy would be screaming in pain, and his friend thinks he's kidding around, but then Sid goes, have a good day, and walk away from the guy. Goes, that's how real pro wrestling is. Make fun of me, I'll show you how real it is.
So this
again, to answer your question, it's sports entertainment versus wrestling. I want to be a wrestler. I didn't want to be an entertainer. Entertainer, let me go Hollywood.
All right, so this question from the chat room, Mr. Riggs, we got from OG Nitty, one of the good friends, the founder fathers of the program. He asked the question, if WWE offered you a contract today, would you sign it?
To be honest with you, somebody asked me on my Facebook today, and my basic answer is no. Okay. I mean, it's, again, for the same exact reason, I wouldn't want to go there because, number one, however they would want to use me, I wouldn't know how they want to use me. You know, just the main reason Sting didn't want to go there. Sting was like, dude, I've built this persona for so long. If I go there, all I'm going to have to do is walk out there against The Rock, and Rock's going to go, who are you, you clown in the face paint? And the next thing you know, everything he had worked for is going to be gone. I could go out there, and they want me to be, you know, Billy Gunn and Chuck Palumbo. I'm so in love with you with somebody as a tag guy, and that's not me. You know, I'm not going to be acting like I want to propose my tag team partner. You know what I'm saying? That's not my gimmick. And so there's no way in God's green earth I could do that.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's why there's no way I could ever be a part of that company. Even though at one point, you know, I kind of pursued it a little bit, like when I was talking to Jim Ross and those guys.
Right.
But I was so thankful they said, you know, you just don't have the character we're looking for. You got the wrestling skills, but, you know, you don't have a personality that we feel we can work with. And a lot of guys will lose their jobs or not be used and make very little money because creative can't find something for them to do.
Well, I know Hitman Lopez, you know, is over there salivating like I told you. No, he's a huge and I'm older in age, and I love all wrestling. You know what I mean? I grew up. I'm 36. I grew up off of NWA.
You're a kid. I'm 4 years older than you, so you're a kid.
You're 4. You're 4 years older than me. How you gonna call me a kid? Come on, I've had.
You were just getting into high school when I was in college. You're a kid.
2 tears in a bucket. You know the rest, right?
I got you. Suck it.
All right. No, don't. You can't tell other man suck it. That's broke back. You can't. You can't go around telling other men the S or D. That doesn't sound right. You know what I mean? But Scott, you know what? It was a pleasure having you on, my friend. I appreciate it. I thank you. Listen, now I know since you've been advertising coming on Perfect Plex Talk Radio, part of the best damn strong radio networks, everybody's after you now. They got to wait a week, but it's okay. You came here first. We appreciate it, Scotty.
Dude, I mean, the funny thing was, as soon as y'all put that first thing up on my my message board, my Facebook,
everybody came around.
The next thing you know, I had messages from promoters wanting to book me for shows, promoters, radio shows. I actually had a radio show tomorrow night with me and DDP. We're going to be on it. The guy was like, I know you're doing this thing Monday. We want you Tuesday. But they actually canceled the show Tuesday, and DDP and me are now on doing a show for the guy this coming Friday. But I got tons and tons of little things coming up that all these guys want to use me for this, want me to make an appearance here, and you guys actually kicked that off. You know.
But you know what? You remember the saying from my man Emilio Estevez and Young Guns? You come on here, we make you famous.
There you go.
But you already
all I remember is after they did it, peyote in that movie, is that one guy right before he pukes, he goes, "Horse, you see the size of that chicken?"
Well, people,
that's my favorite line. That's my favorite line of that movie right there. So,
again, Scott, I thank you very much, man. I look forward to talking to you again at a later date. I want everybody to do what we do best here on Perfect Plex Talk Radio. Stand on your feet for Scotty Riggs.